If you've listened to this podcast before, you'll know I care about the past. Old stories, faded memories, the things we carry forward without even realizing. Nostalgia runs deep here. And so speaking with someone who also values the old brought me a quiet kind of joy. Welcome to The Brown Box, a podcast where we tell the stories and amplify the voices of brown women right here in Singapore. Today's guest is Nuryanee Anisah, the founder of Commenhers, a fashion label that upcycles discarded textiles into something new. And Nuryanee, or Yanhee, doesn't just upcycle. She values, she respects, she sees old objects, fabric, furniture, not as waste, but as objects that hold the past, stories, memories. She's fascinated by the simple thought of, where did this come from? She sees meaning in what others throw away, in the same way that I find meaning in half-remembered stories or scratched memories of childhood. This episode is about sustainability, yes, but it's also about care. Care for the planet, care for people, care for the community, and care for the parts of ourselves that deserve a slower, softer kind of attention. I begin by asking Yanhee what sustainability means to her personally.
Sustainability means, I think, many different things. But for me, I think it's ever-growing thought to actually care for the environment, the people around you, and as well as your body. It's the mode of caring and to create something that takes care of the sustainability or like sustaining a thing, the livelihood, and also creating a comfortable environment or a clean environment. That is my definition of sustainability because it's an ever-growing thing. When we look at the environment, it is continuously changing because of the many different things that's happening. There's no one-size-fits-all solution or definition. You need to have a growth mindset along with it as well so that we know how to care for the environment. But I think for me, it also involves like the people around you and also like yourself, because without that sustainability, you can't create more impact as well.
Sustainability often brings to mind big, abstract things, but Yanhee brings it back to something more intimate. She sees it more like a pledge to care for the earth, for others, and for yourself. And it's an ever-evolving pledge that needs to adjust to changing circumstances, changing challenges. As she continues, she takes that thought even further.
Because I was having a discussion like in terms of biocentric and anthropocentric, that means only caring about human and what impacts us the most. But I think looking at the biocentric, or even not being either biocentric or anthropocentric, it's to basically care for anything and everyone and even the environment. And for myself, it's also to care about the sustainability of myself to create more impact, because we're always driven like in cosmopolitan society like Singapore. We're always driven and always swallowed by the adversity of life because everything is very fast-paced. And I think it's very important to care about your sustainability within yourself, to take time to reflect and be grateful, and also to be mindful as well, so that we can preserve or maybe conserve our body to slow down a bit so that we can create a greater impact, which is part of sustainability. I think slowing down is very important. It's not a negative thing because some people feel that slowing down might prevent you from succeeding or achieving many things, but to slow down at one point of time or maybe have continuous or scheduled moment to slow down will enable you to create greater impact, to enable you to succeed in the things that you want to succeed. For example, when you create like a solution, try and think of a solution by slowing down or maybe reflecting on the issue that I am facing, like for example, environmental pollution that is happening, and I'm trying to think of a solution. And if I were to dwell on it for so long and feel like there's no way that I can solve this because there's many things, many stakeholders, and then like it's in terms of science, I should be very careful, and then you get overwhelmed. But when you slow down, you actually realize that, oh, there's actually like a certain kind of gap that I can touch base on, and it enables you to free up your mind and think creatively. Yeah, slowing down is actually not a negative thing, and it's actually really important because you get to reflect. You get to put your mind at ease for a while. And actually, like these ideas or even yourself in your mind, you get to remain sane. I wouldn't say remain sane, but actually enables you to like breach all of these barriers.
It's true, we don't always associate slowing down with success. But here, Yanhee flips that. And in commerce-driven Singapore, where being busy has been equated with success, where not having any time is seen as a badge of honor, a country that rewards efficiency, that rewards speed and output, she reminds us that pausing, slowing down, reflecting, this isn't a luxury, it's a strategy. That sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stop, take a breath, and let the solution come to you. I have to ask, where did this approach to the world emerge from?
I think looking back at when I was younger, this concept of carrying out a sustainable lifestyle wasn't really shoved into me. Like I was naturally part of it because when I was growing up, my mom just naturally brings me to like thrift store, buy secondhand books, renews like our t-shirts into rugs. Post-independence, the economy was a bit a downturn. Singapore was still stabilizing. So I think my mom was living in a very so-called like big family as well. And I think everyone was trying to save money. Growing up for me, hand-me-downs and also going to the thrift store was a normal thing as well. So I didn't see it as a trend like right now people love going to vintage thrift stores or bundle stores. For me, growing up, it was actually just visiting my mom to like a shopping mall, but it was the thrift store. And I really enjoyed it because I get to find many different things from vinyls to soft toys and also storybooks. And I really love the experience that I actually get visiting these thrift stores or even the Sungai Road, which is now not present anymore, which is very sad. I used to follow my dad around to scout for his like vintage collectibles because he loved buying secondhand furniture and as well as like those antique plates and locks and everything. And I love just seeing everyone around him appreciating these secondhand goods that has a story to tell. He did this thing with my grandfather, who was a vendor, like a seller at Sungai Road as well. Sadly, I couldn't have a chance to actually be with my grandfather because he passed away before I was born. But I clearly remember my dad really resonating with the work that my grandfather did. He mentioned that like my grandfather was like a form of inspiration to him, especially in terms of business acumen and as well as the drive and also appreciation towards these secondhand goods, which are collectibles and as well as there's a potential to sell to other people who appreciate it as well. I think aside from saving costs, it's also the story that comes with it, like an antique furniture. All of these things has the beauty towards it because right now if you see the same thing, maybe it's higher price or it won't be as of the same quality. And most of my items at back in home is secondhand antique furniture. When it comes to being placed at home, he gets to like tell a lot of story. Where was this antique fan from? Oh, it was from the old Changi hospital. And then this beauty, the shape even, and also the marks, like the scratch marks and everything. People might see it as a flaw, but we see it as like a story, appreciation that something is carried forward to you to actually appreciate, touch, and feel as well. Because I think there's no Instagram story last time. But right now, like through these things, we get to appreciate better because it was from a pastime that I wasn't there before. And I get to resonate through these small items. And something that people might see it as trash or maybe waste is actually something very phenomenal because you won't get that same Changi hospital fan anymore. It carries that story. There's this cabinet that was from, I think the 80s, maybe longer than the 70s, that I don't see it anymore. And I love watching the old movies like Piramli movies at Shaw Brothers production house. I think it was Ujang Lapuk or something like that. And I saw the same furniture in the movie. Then I was like, wow, that's so cool. I have this same furniture at home.
To Yanhee and her family, sustainability wasn't just a trend. For a time it was a need, but it was also a value system, one that appreciated the old, the pre-loved, and the quiet stories that these objects carried, she would begin to see the same beauty in textiles as well.
I think the same goes to textiles as well, because you either can don like maybe your grandfather's clothing, or maybe revamp like the clothing, old denim jeans into things of character. Yeah, so I think everything carries a story, and it does resonate as well with textiles as well. Old textiles actually last very long, because I do have still an antique carpet that my dad, I think he got it from Sungai Road as well, that lasts till today. But if you compare like fast produced textiles, it degrades very fast because people are driven to create nice looking items on the surface, but it doesn't last.
This love for the old, for what's been touched and used and passed down, it's so beautiful to see this in someone so young. But it's not just nostalgia. Yanee's father built a life around this, collecting, repairing, passing things on. How did his work, his way of seeing the world, shape the path Yanee is on today?
I see it as an inspiration because through all the challenges that he faced, he manages to create impact, create job opportunities for the community, hiring people of different backgrounds, and also creating happy customers. There's customers as well, angry customers, but that through that experience, he actually take it as a point of improvement. And I think there is a growth mindset towards every entrepreneur's journey that you have to take, that pushes me to view life in a huge scope, because it's not always just you, and that running a business, you always need partnership. Previously, I had this thought that creating a business is always an alone journey. I have to succeed myself. I have to do everything myself. But if you look at scaling your business and also creating enterprise, you actually have to collaborate with many people, have to create partnerships. It's not just in terms of transactional dealings and everything, but it's also caring about how that person feels in terms of clients, in terms of employees. Are they comfortable, to create an environment that enables people to grow? Because I think aside from just giving them a job, settling all of the to-do lists and everything, but we want to create an environment that our employees get to learn as well. Because I think everyone is driven to learn something based from what I know. That is what I see from my dad's experience as well. From a young age, like 4 or 5 years old, I was thrown into this environment because I love following my dad around and seeing what he's up to, going for his business meetings and just there listening in. But I do see the struggles as well. Yeah, I think that is what I've been thrown to from a very young age, to be very resilient, because not everything comes easily and you always have to take risks. From my dad's side, his risk take is to be the maximum risk taker. He will push me to go in for meetings, or maybe be a meeting note taker, help him with emails, emailing to big organizations to ask everything. That spirit to be like, not be shy and to be a go-getter to get things done was, I think, introduced to me from a very young age already, because I see that to achieve things, or to achieve like a collaboration, for example, you might feel scared, because growing up, I feel I'm a very shy person and I'm very like soft-spoken. So this opportunity enables me to try bit by bit at a very small young age to help my dad achieve the things that he wants. And through that process, I also get to learn that I have to be a go-getter. I have to be resilient and try, and failing is a normal thing through the process of succeeding.
What Yanee learned from her father wasn't just in his successes, but in his failures as well, in his mistakes, the struggles. She learned resilience, the quiet courage to keep going. And from his success, she learned generosity. That impact isn't just about what you build, but how you bring others along with you. But there's one thing that Yanee mentions in passing that I want to hear more about. Her father was a musician.
My dad and uncle was a duo band group. They're a musician that actually creates song that is referencing, or maybe a certain kind of poem, in highlighting Nusantara poems, and as well as the beauty in Bahasa Melayu language, or Bahasa itself. And I really appreciate it because like most of his songs are really motivating and which highlights like resilience, which is what I see what my dad and my uncle is. I mean, their spirit. I think it's very credible, maybe very honorable of them to actually do this because they are coming from a ground that they're passionate or they appreciate the beauty of Nusantara poems or even the language itself and the music itself. Even though he's doing something traditional like Nusantara and so as poems, but the music that they create is very into the pop stream. So people of normal listeners that love listening to pop music actually get to appreciate Nusantara or traditional lyrical thing through the pop music that he creates. And I think that's really amazing because I haven't seen one, or maybe I might be biased, but I see that comment through like the different performance that he does at, I think, the old substation. I followed him to the substation and he was performing, and I was usually at the backstage and I hear his musician peers commenting about my dad positively, and as well as like the other performance that he have at maybe MediaCorp or maybe overseas. And I clearly remember sometimes he has to go for long trips as well, like representing NEC for Singapore to like the White House singing a Malay song. I think I was really inspired by that as well.
Hang on, your father sang in the White House.
Yeah, correct, for NEC. Yeah, so he was singing a poem about talking about the challenges of farmers, rice farmers creating this rice, and we're just eating this rice casually with like one whole hand of scoop. But actually to harvest that one rice actually takes a long time. And he was telling about the tears and the struggles of these farmers, and we should actually appreciate the food or this rice that we have one whole plate that we have to eat. I think that was really nice.
As you can probably tell from my voice in the background, the storyteller in me was quietly thrilled by this moment. Two brothers singing old Malay songs in the White House. The image felt almost surreal, the music of the East drifting through some room in that iconic White House. But what really stayed with me was the idea that this too was some sort of upcycling. Her father wasn't just performing, he was reviving, reclaiming old Malay songs and giving them new arrangements, new audiences, and in doing so, carrying them forward. But there's someone missing in this narrative, someone else that shaped her. And as I edit this, I find myself playing this footage a few times just so I can see how Yanhee's face lights up at this moment.
My mom is really amazing. She's really down to earth. She has opened up my perception towards caring for other people as well. So everything is not like a lone journey. We also have to care for the environment and the people around us because, I mean, through looking at the Islamic concept of things, it's very important to care for the people around you and always spread kindness to anything and everyone and try and help to ease any kind of challenges or difficulty that they're facing because naturally these things, it will help you to be a person of growth mindset and also to be much more reflective in your journey. It also gives you like good energy because naturally somehow, even though my mom doesn't realize, when I see her helping someone, like along the way, maybe a few weeks or a few months later, like she faces a struggle and then she said, Yanhee, but thank God someone helped me then. Or thank God I've managed to find a solution. And even though she doesn't realize it, but I see it as a point of good energy that she gets from helping people or the environment or doing community service work along the way. So my mom is actually a public servant. She's a nurse, so she's in a pediatric side and she takes care of critical patients where they have like very complex health issues so she supports them maybe at their end of life or how they can be brought back home with intubation. I think being a nurse or even being in the healthcare industry is already very tough. She brings me to this voluntary work that she has. So we volunteered for Red Cross together. We also volunteered for homeless huts where we went around to distribute food to the homeless people in Singapore and as well as befriend them. I actually learned from a young age that it's very important to give back, or maybe in every journey that we take, in every decision that we take in life, it's important to reflect the impact that we have towards the people or the environment around us. It gives me this perception that there needs to be a touch of humanity in everything that we do. And especially in business, when we're profit driven, sometimes we detach from these things. And I think what my mom has made me experience and make me remember, I am able to be more reflective in my journey in business.
From her father, Yanee learned resilience, the drive to build, to take risks, to go after things boldly. But from her mother, she learned something quieter, a way of caring, of giving without asking for anything in return. And it was both influences, the drive of her father and the compassion of her mother, that shaped this woman sitting in front of me today. But growing up wasn't always easy. Her father's business brought highs, but also uncertainty, the kind of financial swings that can ripple through a household, especially like Yanee when you're old enough to notice, but not old enough to do anything about it.
I had to shift primary schools and secondary schools. And once we shifted abroad as well to Malaysia, so I was traveling in and out of JB. But the experience really pushed me to be resilient, especially in terms of the many new environment that I have to be in, find new friends, get used to the new system in the new school, as well as traveling in the early morning. I have to wake up at 4 a.m., be in a bus by 4:30 or 4:45, and then running to the causeway to make sure that I arrive school on time. That experience really was very tiring and was very nerve-wracking as well. Being like a very shy girl, I have to make new friends and everything. But somehow I got used to it as well, which also makes me stronger as who I am today as an entrepreneur. So whenever there is like setbacks or bad news or challenges in the business, I am ready to try and be there to solve the problem, because this is life. There's many ups and downs and everything. And it's either you sulk and cry or maybe feel sad, or you go through the journey and overcome all the challenges.
At a time when most girls are worrying about haircuts, school bags, maybe what to wear over the weekend, Yanee was waking up at 4 a.m. to cross a national border alone. For many of us who grew up with instability at home, childhood can get quietly compressed. You start to take on more, and not because anyone tells you to, but because you decide to. So you decide to top the class, you decide what university you're aiming for. You can also decide that saving money is also your responsibility, or making money is your responsibility. In many ways, I was the same as well, trying to stay one step ahead, trying to hold everything together before I was even old enough to understand what was coming apart. And for Yanee, there were more challenges still.
What happened was that when I was in primary school, so I have dyslexia, so I don't know how to tie my hair or my shoelace till like I'm primary 4. I have curly hair. I'm born with natural curly hair. I think my mom did like a simple hair tie for me, like a ponytail. So my hair was really like considered not neat. They were doing like a tire check at the gate. And then my discipline master stopped me and took a picture of my hair. He took a picture. I didn't know what was it for. And then he just told me to go back to class. The next day was assembly period. So they had this normal briefing also to brief students about the way you should keep your attire and everything. And my picture was placed there in front of the whole school. And I think my discipline master was trying to describe all the unacceptable appearance, and he called my hair like horse ass, like in front of the whole assembly school, and the whole school laughed. I think that affected me a little bit emotionally, because I wouldn't have expected that people would laugh. I felt that criticism, even though it's not to the whole school but to me, because he's trying to show that ponytail curly hair is like a horse, wasn't acceptable. I felt that it was a little bit insensitive.
She was a child with dyslexia, doing her best, just trying to get through school, and yet she was singled out. These are conversations we've had before on this podcast. How something as simple as curly hair or darker skin becomes a dividing line in childhood, a reminder that you're different, and a subtle indication that maybe that difference makes you slightly inferior. And years later, these are still the emotions we're trying to untangle. I want to move to a happier space. So I asked Yanhee what fashion meant to her at this age.
I think fashion is an outlet of expression. I think growing up, I love dressing up. Like, I love colorful colors, things that show my personality or reflects me as a person. So I see fashion as an outlet, like a canvas to express who you are as a person. Yeah, I actually love fashion. I remember my mom saying that I love sparkly and pink, orange, red, whatever colors that you can see available. I would use them. Yeah, I would say naturally, for me, I love fashion.
Yanhee graduated from Singapore Polytechnic in 2021 with a diploma in business administration, earning a silver medal and a spot on the director's honor roll. She went on to pursue a Bachelor of Business Administration at NUS, where she was accepted into the honors track. In her first year, she also took up a diploma in apparel design and product development to better understand the fashion industry from both business and creative angles. I asked her, how did Commenhers begin? What were those first days like?
Final year, we have to create a final year project, which is to set up a business. I really wanted to do something that resonates with me. I have the chance to be creative, but I also get to upcycle these textiles that has the value of being repurposed into a higher value item and selling it to consumers. I was lucky enough to have met like-minded people. As I mentioned, partnership is very important. And I've met a group of 4 other students who were like-minded. They've inspired me through the journey because they are thrifters. They love vintage items as well. One of my members actually told me I should read out about the impacts of fast fashion and everything. There's these certain brands that create so much impact in our earth. We did a research in 2019, and one of the shocking thing for me was the textile recycling rate in Singapore. So back then it was, I think, 11%, but that textile recycling rate falls, like it declines. Right now in 2023, if I'm not wrong, it was 2%. That was one of the pain point that we actually tried to touch base on why we started Commenhers. We want to increase the textile recycling rate in Singapore. Aside from that, one of the reasons why we actually wanted to create this company was because of the unethical production. The fashion industry is one of the main carbon emission polluters in the world. I think they are contributing 10% of the world carbon's emission. And to create one cotton shirt, it takes about 10,000 liters of water, which is a lot of water. You try to imagine it.
There were 2 moments that changed the way Yanhee saw fashion. The first was close to home. A small thrift store in Singapore, which during COVID had no choice but to dump stacks of unsold jeans, slightly moldy but perfectly good clothing, discarded simply because there was no one to take them. It was the first time she saw just how much waste the industry quietly produced, but it was the second moment that stayed with her the most.
So, if I'm not wrong, Rana Plaza happened in 2017 or 2014. This garment factory in Bangladesh, there's actually a new building. There was a huge crack in the building. People started running out, but the company told all the garment workers to go in back because as per normal, like in the fashion industry, everything is, always rush for time. And if you were to delay or maybe sew a garment wrongly, then your whole batch of garment will be rejected, which is a cost as well. So they actually asked the garment workers to go in back to the unsafe, unchecked building that has a huge crack to just continue sewing because they have many different deadlines to meet and cost and money is at the factor to be think about. So that happened. They went in. Few hours later, the building collapsed. It was very sad. It killed over 1,000+ people, and knowing that majority is women, many families, their mothers passed away, or even knowing the fact that up to 2,000 garment workers have permanent injuries from the happening of Rana Plaza, and I'm really sad to know. I was looking at a YouTube video of a mother who has a spine injury that was permanent, so she couldn't go out to find a normal working job to support a family. And from the trauma that she has from the happening, I was really sad. And I heard that she has to do 800 pieces of clothing articles in a day, and they are only paid a few cents in an hour. I felt really sad when I listened to all of these situations, because I can't imagine like my mom doing this. I can't imagine myself doing this as well.
Rana Plaza became a symbol of exploitation masked as affordability, and of how cheap clothes often come at a high cost, a human cost. There was a shift in Yanhee. Her goal was no longer to just upcycle clothes, but to empower communities as well.
So I think resonating back to commoners, which is why we want to create this business that actually focuses on recycling textiles while empowering local communities. To give like an overview, Commoners is a social enterprise or impact-driven enterprise that focuses on upcycling textile waste into new products. We hire local beneficiaries, so they're like single mothers, seniors, or even marginalised women. We either give them full-time employment or part-time or ad hoc, giving them a right to say what's comfortable with them, meeting their skill sets to work together with us to create this solution. So for Commoners, we believe that we want to create a solution that is within Singapore. So what we do is that we recycle waste from Singapore in Singapore as well.
Yanhee and Commoners have built a model that's anything but typical. Instead of setting up a studio with salaried staff, they chose the harder path, working with women often left out of the traditional workforce. Homemakers, caregivers, seniors. These are the makers. In interviews I read online, senior women share that they never had the chance to sew professionally when they were younger, and now Commoners gives them that chance to earn, to create, to be seen. Also, Yanhee believes deeply in bringing the work to where these women already are, at home, caring for young children or elderly parents. She's challenging the old idea that you have to leave your family behind to earn a living. Instead, she's created a model that makes space for both, for work and for care, without asking women to choose between the two. And the learning, the support, moved in both directions.
My first two makers that I have known when I first started Commoners is still working with me till today. Aside from it being very transactional, where they receive like a form of income after they end a project or at the end of the month, I feel that they are really like, it's not very cliche, but like family, where they look out for me, advise me on the things that I should take note of. We collaborated with a science center where our senior makers went to like their fabrication lab and learn how to use like a laser cutter to create like their fashion pieces. They were really empowered by it. I don't feel that we have the gap. It's just vibing with each other in your own journey, like the projects that you're going through, and maybe we might be trauma bonded as well. I feel it's not true that we have the generation gap, because in Commoners and with the senior makers that we work with, it feels like family, or like having a chat with like your grandma or like your mom. I feel really grateful that we are able to establish this genuine connection with like our makers, and it doesn't really feel like talking to your employees. Yeah. So Commoners, the word actually is a word play. So we wanted to tell about commoners, our normal people going to work and every day. It feels like there is a negative towards it. It feels like a very mundane, like commoners, like office people going with their same office clothing and everything. But in Commoners, we actually want to create a company that helps people to express themselves through the clothing or product that they use from our company. And we wanted to highlight men and hers. So there is like the wordplay of men, which is spelled as mon, which is commoners, but we have the men and hers there as well, highlighting both ladies and gents products that we hope to create. So that's how the word commoners came about. Our product is basically creating upcycled goods, currently mainly focusing on accessories, but we do apparels as well, but mainly for showcases or fashion show. So what we do is that we recycle unloved or pre-loved textiles into new products, or even unconventional products like kayaks, air mattresses, or even tens into products that our corporate client can actually sell back in their retail store or even use it back in their facility, because we do work with hotels and also hospitals as well. So sometimes for our hospitals, there's like linen waste. So we will maybe upcycle it into aprons where their staff can use it for housekeeping matters. Or for example, on a retail level, when we work with major retailers like Decathlon, we look at their discarded goods like kayaks, where we upcycle them into duffel bags that they can sell back on a retail level. We also provide workshops and talks where we upskill individuals on how to upcycle their own clothing, because it's not possible to buy something upcycle every time. So it's important we try and encourage people to gain that skills to learn how to mend or repair their own clothing.
Commenhers is a small company taking on big things. Yes, they're a fashion label, but not one built on trends or the latest looks. They work with what's been discarded, transforming waste into something new. They're also an employer, not defined by contracts, but by care. A space where women, often left out of the workforce, can work around the limitations of time, schedule, and skill. They're also teachers, not just of how to make or mend, but of how to live with intention and a little more care. I'm in awe of this young woman and all she's built. As our conversation draws to a close, I find myself circling back to something Yanee mentioned in passing, living with dyslexia. I recall a headline I came across. Here's how it read: despite dyslexia, NUS student starts business upcycling textile waste, now partners with Decathlon. It's the kind of reframing that flattens a person, reducing a whole life to a single struggle. And I can't help but wonder what that feels like. So I ask her gently about the headline and about what it means to carry all this attention at such a young age.
I honestly feel overwhelmed, but I think the risk that I take to actually communicate what commoners do, and also the importance of recycling textiles and sustainability solutions and everything, putting myself out there and inspiring people on my age or even older to be part of the journey. And every time, even like in this podcast, I feel overwhelmed. But I think I got used to it. I always think about the impact that I am able to create by sharing and putting myself out there. And for that article, they actually gave me a few options in terms of the title, and all of them was not fitting, but that was the most fitting for me. And I just said yes. But looking at it, I feel that, wow, that title was very like insensitive, because I think no one should be limited because of a certain kind of learning challenge or maybe a challenge that they are facing. I just feel that I am just moving story like that is willing to share what I am facing, or the journey of creating commoners and also still being a student, also having dyslexia and everything. I'm also an advocate about spreading awareness about what children with dyslexia or even adults as well, because dyslexia is actually not a disability. It's actually a difficulty that they face where they have struggles processing things like words or even maths function that they face. So they just need a little bit more time to process certain new information, especially when it comes to language like ABCD or even 1, 2, 3. Some of these words might appear jumbled up in terms of the pictorial sense of it. And then when you write, we can't connect the number or the sound of it to the actual numerical digit, if you get what I mean. Growing up, like, it's a struggle because I was usually the slowest student in class. Teachers misunderstand me, and my classmate looked at me in a negative light, saying that I'm lazy or maybe I just don't put the effort. And some friends, especially the smart ones, would not want to mix around with me. But through that experience, I learned that I should be easy on myself and not be swallowed by people's perception. Work hard, but also please have some kind of self-care and never be discouraged or maybe feel disheartened that you have this flaw, because what is known as flaw is actually something that is a shining light that gives you a form of inspiration. Coming from me, I felt sad that I have dyslexia, like why am I different? But I realized through being a dyslexic kid, I have this creative touch that was different from the rest of the kids in my class. And I think that's important in life. It's not just achieving all the materialistic stuff, showing who we are, being true to ourselves as an individual and caring about ourselves. Because without this heartbeat, without this person going around, you can't do the things that you like to do, making someone smile or experiencing things in the world. Yeah. So I think that's really important. Yeah. Not only for dyslexic kids. Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
Mine's from me also.
No problem. Yeah. Thank you.
Yanhee's story is a reminder that building something meaningful doesn't always start with a big new idea. Sometimes it starts with what we already have: discarded objects, worn out fabric, overlooked people, a quiet love for the old. Yanhee grew up surrounded by secondhand treasures and the stories they carried, things others had let go of, but that still held value. And that instinct to care for what's forgotten but still has life left in it became the foundation of Commenhers. From her father, she learned how to build. From her mother, how to care. And together, those lessons taught her that sustainability isn't just about the planet. It's also about the people on this planet. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Yanhee as much as I have. She taught me a few lessons as well. She showed me that love for the old, for nostalgia, isn't just a boomer trait. That nostalgia is needed. It roots us. It grounds us. That slowing down isn't weakness. It can be its own kind of power. That the things we discard, old clothes, old objects, older people, older ideas, belief systems, values, might still hold beauty, might still have power. And maybe that's the invitation in today's story, to look again at the things we've been taught to overlook, to ask, what have I been quick to discard? What might still hold beauty, meaning, or possibility if I just gave it the care it deserves? Just something to think about until you join me the next time, right here on The Brown Box, as we explore the life and the story of another brown woman